Good morning, Emily and Scott and everyone in the Gampa. We'll get started in just a couple of minutes. And good morning, everyone on YouTube as well.
Make silk out of it. Whatever that means. Well, we're going to start out with prostrations, those of you who are brave enough to do it. And those of you who are not, that's fine. Although it is an antidote to arrogance, hello, that's the biggest obstacle to learning. So that's why one of the reasons we do it, purifies the body, speech, and mind, antidote to arrogance. We paying homage to the Buddhas, enlightened beings, but also our potential to become enlightened, paying homage to the Dharma, the realizations of those teachings, but our potential to realize those teachings. We're paying homage to the spiritual community, but our potential to be that for other people. So there's a lot to unpack when you do prostrations, but it's a good way to, start things out. So, and those of you who know the multiplying mantra, it increases the power of the prostrations 100 million times, something like that. So it's a good number. Keep in mind. Om Namo Manjushriye, Namo Susriye, Namo Uttamashriye Soha. Om Namo Manjushriye, Namo Susriye, Namo Uttamashriye Soha. Om Namo Manjushriye, Namo Susriye, Namo Uttamashriye Soha. So, let's see. I may need the book. So why don't we do the refuge bodhicitta? Well, actually, before we do that, let's do something different. Do something a little different. It's amazing this thing is still here. It's gone. It's amazing I'm still here. God, I bought that thing 100 years ago. Anyway. So there's, before we do the prayers, we practice, let's say we try to practice in the Mahayana tradition. So what does that mean? Our aspiration for, and if you understand anything about karma, everything depends upon your motivation. It's a word we use. And there are lots of motivations, like, honestly, most of us are probably just thinking about this life, maybe even today, just help me get through today. But the most magnanimous motivation for spiritual practice is not just individual liberation, which is great. I mean, that's the motivation of somebody in the Theravada tradition, which is, I have spent time in Thailand and Sri Lanka and places like that back in the day when I was a Dharma bum, traveling around And it was, and it's great. It's a fantastic motivation is to stop your own suffering. And if you can do that, you become, that's called nirvana, and you become what's called an arhat. And that's great motivation. But the motivation that we aspire to, and in the beginning, it's effortful. And it's compassion that includes everybody. It's not just about, my happiness and my freedom from suffering, but it's about, the happiness and freedom from suffering for universal living beings. So it's a big game. And interestingly, teachers have said, when our motivation is focused out like that, we want others to be happy and be free of suffering. The byproduct of that is our own happiness and freedom from suffering, but that's not the goal. It's not focused on, ourselves. So kind of interesting. So anyway, it's so important because we're a Mahayana center that our motivation is this awakening mind, bodhicitta. We always should start everything that we ever do at the center with that motivation, even if it's only a sentence or two. But we'll do a little contemplative meditation on it just for a few minutes, and then we'll do the prayers. Just sit up straight, bring your attention to your breath, or whatever you can focus on. Let the discursive mind calm down a little bit. Good to scan your body for any tension from head to toe. And then, of course, when the mind gets distracted, which it does after about 3 breaths, if you're lucky, you bring it back again and again. So if you if you've meditated for like literally lifetimes on this subject, then I could say, please dedicate their altruistic intention to become enlightened based on love and compassion. And you could just hook right into that mindset. But that doesn't work. How many people, if you don't feel anything when you say that, you just, parroted some words that you were told to say, but you don't feel anything. So it's important to develop some feeling for the meaning of these words rather than just saying them. Then the motivation's real. Then it's something that's going to transform our mind and make a huge difference. So anyway, anytime we're trying to develop compassion. And we'll get back into talk about a little bit in compassion maybe later. But when we're trying to develop compassion, not just for ourselves, but for everybody, the people we love, the people we don't love, the people we dislike, the people we don't know, and all sentient beings. I mean, even down to the animals, and you name it, all sentient beings. That's when we're trying to develop universal compassion. That's hard. So we have to start out, excuse me, meditating on equanimity, like even-mindedness. Otherwise, it becomes bias compassion. Of course, we can have compassion for our children, loved ones, but not the faceless people in the elevator or driving next to us in the highway or whatever. Or the people we dislike. We're not going to have any. We won't have any feeling for them. We have to, if we're going to include them in our sort of mandala of compassion, we have to make some effort to do that. So we do the meditation on equanimity, where we might, one of the sort of classic way to do it is imagine the strangers in front of us, the faceless people that we see every day. It's the vast majority of beings in this universe and beyond. And then on our left is someone we feel close to, and we feel some attachment to them. And on the right, someone we feel aversion to. Just, you might say, well, I don't hate anybody, but just somebody that we have some resistance to would be a good person to bring to mind. And then we look at these three categories of beings, realizing that they are just like we are. They want happiness. They don't want to suffer. We all just go about it in our own kind of deluded way sometimes, but we all know exactly what makes everybody tick, that feeling, that desire. And these relationships are not fixed. Friends can become enemies, enemies can become friends. And all of our friends and enemies at one point were strangers. So these are all sort of changeable. And if you can open up the sort of blinders of your mind and embrace, or at least creatively align, that's what the term that comes to mind to me, that, our mind is beginningless, and in every lifetime we've had parents. So we've had countless parents and that have loved us and even sacrificed their lives for us in previous lifetimes. And so everybody's been family. Everybody, the so-called friends, stranger, and enemy, have all been like extremely kind to us. So we're going to focus on their kindness. They might have been mean to us too, by the way, but the behavior that was kind was actually the behavior that was motivated by wisdom, correct understanding. We try to develop a sense of equanimity to these three categories of beings: the friend that we cling to, the strangers that we feel indifference toward, and the so-called enemy, people, the person we feel, the people or beings that we feel aversion toward. Then we can again go back and look at how we're all exactly the same in wanting to be happy. Everything we do from 24/7 is to be happy and avoid suffering. And I think I've given this example too many times, but it's one the Dalai Lama gives. He says when he does this meditation on the equality of self and others, he says he imagines himself this in like partition or fence or line or whatever, and he's on one side, and universal, I mean countless, infinite beings are on the other side, right? And he says, I want to be happy, I don't want to suffer. And then on the other side, this roar of countless beings saying exactly the same thing. I want to be happy, I don't want to suffer. So whose happiness is more important, the happiness of one or the happiness of infinite others? Well, the one just happens to be me or you. So we instinctively think that our happiness is most important. But others' happiness is just as important. So we try to develop this attitude of equality of self and others, equality in this basic, important way that we all are wired exactly the same way in wanting happiness and to avoid suffering. When you look into somebody's eyes today or whatever, and if you can just be mindful of that, it changes your whole connection to that person, realizing you're kind of looking into their soul, like what makes them tick. And then we focus on the next contemplation has to do with the faults of self-cherishing selfishness. And the Buddhism would say, I say I'm speaking for Buddhism here like it's a person, but the teachings and the teachers have said many times that all of the suffering that we have ever experienced individually, the sufferings that people from different ethnicities and religions and all, you name it, all the suffering that beings have had from the beginning of beginningless time until right now, right this minute, is the fault of one demon. And that demon is our selfishness, our self-centeredness, the word self-cherishing selfishness is powerful. And we're not aware that we're operating from that mode most of the time. But it's like it lives in our heart. The real devil isn't some sort of red guy with a pointed tail and horns. It's not that. It's real. If you want to equate devil with the source of our suffering, it lives in our heart in the form of this self-cherishing selfishness. This me, I. Our attachment to deliciousness and aversion to problems causes all the problems. We have to come to grips with what a big issue this is for us, and then to begin to, as best we can, unravel it. See through the illusion of this separate self that we believe so strongly in. And then the next contemplation, sort of the antidote, which is the opposite, which is the cause of happiness is cherishing others. And if we just look at the 10 non-virtuous actions, the ones of body, speech, and mind, particularly the ones of body and speech are real easy to see. If we cherished others, we wouldn't kill them. We wouldn't steal from them. We wouldn't behave in ways, our sexual behavior wouldn't be harmful to others. We wouldn't lie and deceive others. We wouldn't badmouth others. We wouldn't speak harshly and offensively in ways that disturbed others' minds. We wouldn't waste others' time with idle gossip. And then the three of mine are more difficult to see, but they're covetousness, ill will, and ignorance. So there's 10 non-virtuous actions. Like the basic practice of Buddhism is just watching, being mindful of the actions of our body and speech. Easier to do than the mind, right? But crucial. Cherishing others is a good place to be. And the next contemplation is just we mentally exchange self-cherishing for cherishing others. So now we imagine that our motivation for everything from come to Kadampa Center for the sake of others. I'm meditating for the sake of others. I took a shower and put clothes on today and tried to show up for the sake of others, and so on. Everything, as much as possible, focusing out instead of me, I. Focus out to others. So powerful. And then the next contemplation has sometimes called the supreme wish, but it's it's the attitude of a spiritual warrior, bodhisattva, someone who's really evolved along the path in their spiritual lives, and it's an aspiration. Obviously, if it could be done, it would have been done, but it's the aspiration. Like, I take personal responsibility. Not up to Robbie Watkins. It's not up to Donna Cease. It's not up to Linda Shaw. It's not up to Geshe Gellig or His Holiness. It's up to me. I take personal responsibility for the happiness of universal living beings, helping them, guide them from whatever state of confusion and suffering they're in now, all the way to supreme enlightenment. By myself alone is my job. They're the ones that have been kind to me in so many ways. And I'm going to repay that kindness and guide them to supreme enlightenment. So it's an aspiration, yeah. It could have been done, it would have been done, right? But it's a place to come from, to take a stand. That's what your life is about, as much as possible. To help and not harm. And then we look at those, when we hear ourselves saying those words, we realize, who could possibly do that? Who could possibly guide beings from confusion and suffering all the way to supreme enlightenment? Only a Buddha. Only somebody who'd been there, who did it, who had done that work on themselves. Someone who's eliminated their faults, developed their good qualities, particularly compassion, loving kindness, power, and skillful means. Those qualities of a Buddha, someone who's become a Buddha. Only the Buddha could do that. So if I really want to be able to do what I said I want to do, I have to set my sights at the top of the mountain. The top of the mountain is enlightenment. I have to set my sights on supreme enlightenment. And it's amazing, so fortunate that in this lifetime, we've come into contact with actual method to do that. The Lamrim teachings of the Buddha, all laid out stepwise. All we have to do is put the effort in, but we don't, many of us don't. We have other more important things to do, seemingly. But we practice We generate renunciation. That's the beginning of the path, where this determination to be free is actually compassion for yourself. Like realizing what a mess your mind is, and what a mess it's going to be like. Your future is going to be messy too, with the kind of mind that we have, which is virtually out of control, very little control. Lots of negative karma always being created. So we have to have compassion for ourselves, so and have some faith that it's actually possible to be free of suffering. So to say, renunciation, we say, oh, that's the determination to be free. But if you don't believe it's possible, it's just empty words. Doesn't mean anything. So you have to have, I think with practice, we began to see, and we see these amazing teachers who are extraordinary human beings, who are the fruition of this practice, who are blissfully happy and can help others in myriad ways. And so we're inspired by them, but also if we do a little practice and we can see that our suffering gets dialed down a little bit, a little bit more joy, a little bit more peace, a little bit more tranquility, a little bit more able to help others, and just a little bit. We can imagine that could be developed. So we have some confidence that we could actually be free of, this determination to be free. So that's called renunciation. Determination to be free of suffering. And then the second of the three principles of the path, the second one's bodhicitta, which is what we're talking about now, this altruistic intention to become enlightened based on love and compassion, not some sentimentality. It really comes from the heart. And then this correct view of emptiness, this wisdom of emptiness, seeing things sounds so easy to say, see things as they are. It's a big deal, because we add so much. We project, our karmic projections obscure realities, so that literally our glasses are completely fogged, our mental glasses. So we need to remove those false projections and see things clearly. And only through understanding, and not just understanding, but putting into practice the teachings on emptiness, can we actually have a realization of that. So renunciation, bodhicitta, and emptiness are the three principles of the path. All of the Lamrim teachings are subsumed in those teachings. And then to get enlightened, to actually go the distance, we have to enter the Vajrayana vehicle, Tantra, and we have to practice the two stages, the generation and completion stage. And it's during the completion stage of Vajrayana that we can access the subtlest state of mind and actually achieve enlightenment. This is the teachings, and it's it takes faith. It takes faith, but it's the best evidence that we have are those teachers that we have now that are realized beings. We had the up until this last year, we had the impeccable example of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. And we have Geshe Gelek, and we have Geshe Sampo, the Dalai Lama, and Khyentse Rinpoche, and a lot of examples of realized, of holy beings. Most people in this culture have never seen a holy being. We have. What amazing inspiration these beings are. So that helps to develop helps us develop our faith. So again, The goal is to liberate all sentient beings and guide them supreme enlightenment. And the method is one's own enlightenment, eliminating our faults, developing our qualities. So we aim for this, again, not natural, completely not how our mind works, or at least my mind. Most people's mind doesn't think, we don't think this way, but in the beginning, we call it developing effortful bodhicitta. And at some point, with enough repetition, enough practice, it becomes effortless. And then we become a bodhisattva. And we're on our way. We're on our way out of this mess. So, as much as possible for a moment, just allow that, notion of this altruistic intention to become enlightened based on sincere, heartfelt love and compassion for all beings. And feel, just don't hear the words, feel how to develop a feeling for the meaning of those words. All right, now we can relax our attention. And where are the prayers? Can you tell us? I forgot my reading glasses. Okay, I'll just have to wing it. Pardon?
Page 34 in the Gold Prayer Book.
Mm-hmm. So again, this is, I have a friend who she doesn't come to Kadampa Center because she doesn't like the ritual. Bless her heart. In a good way. But anyway, Lama Yeshe used to say, because people were complaining to him about the prayers. This is at Kopan. He said, look, if you're going to meditate for an hour, I'd rather you do 58 minutes of prayers. Because you got to get the motivation right. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. You just, if your attitude isn't directed toward this bodhicitta Mahayana perspective, the power of the meditation is not going to take you anywhere. All right, so Linda, you want to be my omse?
Actually, Donna is here to do that.
Oh, we have an omse, a genuine omse. All right, go for it.
Okay. Let's start at the top of page 34 with the Shakyamuni Buddha Mantra 3 times. Cha cha om mune mune maha munaye soha. Cha cha om mune mune maha munaye soha. Jaya ta om mune mune maha munaye soha. And now the Benison Buddha stanza and mantra. Bhagawan, with equal compassion for all, whose name when merely heard dispels the suffering of the lower realms, dispeller of disease and the 3 poisons, I prostrate to Medicine Buddha Lapis Light. Jayata Om Bekanse Bekanse Maha Bekanse Bekanse Raja Samudgate Soha Jayata Om Bekanse Bekanse Maha Bekanse Bekanse Raja Samudgate Soha Jayata Om Bekanse Bekanse Maha Bekanse Bekanse Raja Samudgate Soha Jayata Om Bekanse Bekanse Maha Bekanse Bekanse Raja Samudgate Soha Jayata Om Bekanse Bekanse Maha Bekanse Bekanse Raja Samudgate Soha Jayata Om Bekanse Bekanse Maha Bekanse Bekanse Raja Samudgate Soha Jayata Om Bekanse Bekanse Maha Bekanse Bekanse Raja Samudgate Soha. Now we'll drop down to the four immeasurables, and let's say this twice in English, and once we'll chant it in Tibetan. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. And if you'll flip to the bottom of page 37, that's the chanting version for Tibetan. Sem Tam Che De Wadang De We Gyu Dang Den Pa Gyur Chi Du Ngao Dang Du Ngao Gi Gyu Dang Drel Wa Gyur Chi Du Ngao Me Pe De Wa Dang Mi Drel Wa Gyur Chi Nye Ring Chao Dang Ni Dang Drel Wei Dang Nyam La Ne Pa Gyur Chi. And then right below that, we'll chant Chenrezig's mantra 8 times. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. And Green Tar's mantra 7 times. Om Tari Tu Re So Ha, 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 Om Tari Tu Re So Ha. And now back to page 34, right in the middle. We'll recite the taking refuge and generating bodhicitta. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, May I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings.
We have it's good that they tell me that I have to finish up at 11:30. Since I'm from the Kopan tradition, where we don't have clocks, Lama Zopa just goes when he feels like it's time to stop. Could be 3 a.m. or it could go all night long. Just So I thought about several things to talk about today. But then again, there's several different things that we could do. Of course, we could just open it up to questions, which I'm happy to try to do. If I don't know the answer, I'll ask Robbie, my guru. He mainly teaches me patience, but there are other things that he's taught me too. Just kidding, Robbie. He knows what I mean. So anyway, if people have, sometimes you come here and you have questions. So I'm not saying I can answer all of them, but I know in the Zen tradition, which I've done a fair amount of practice in that tradition, the teacher just says, "Okay, what's on your mind?" Rather than me, talking about what's on my mind or whatever subject matter I've come up with. So what questions, if any, do you have? Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, thanks, Don. So I haven't been to any of the classes that discussed the tantric vehicle and the, what did you say, generating and completion. Can you speak more to that, please?
You'll have to come to the module on Tantra.
Which is module 13 in Discovering Buddhism, and it will be at the end of 2024. It's the last of the Discovering Buddhism module.
You only have to wait a year. I actually do teach that module because there's a good reason for it. I'm already going to the hell realm, so I've already messed that class up so many times that they let me do it. But I will say a few things about it. First of all, Tantra is sort of the esoteric teachings in Buddhism. The Lam Rim is sort of the basic teachings, but when we get into esoteric teachings, the Vajrayana teachings, Tantra, Mantra, Vajrayana, there's a lot of names that we use for it, but basically it's called the resultant path. So, and it's really based on, it turns into, basically, you could, instead of becoming like Yoda, you could become like Darth Vader if you don't have the proper motivation. So the foundation practice for Vajrayana is the Lam Rim, generating bodhicitta, the three principles of the path. You have to have that just to even, and then you have to have a proper empowerment from a qualified teacher. So there's the guru-disciple relationship is key in that practice, because you have to have a qualified teacher to actually give you the empowerment, because so without going into too much detail, all of this iconography around here is Vajrayana. It's based on Tantra. So, colored chakra, and that statue and a lot of these other images are, this. There's Manjushri, the Buddha of wisdom, and the medicine Buddha, and white Tara, long life, and green Tara, active compassion, and Vajrasattva has to do with purification, and so on. So there, the idea is, and it's also, you really have to have some basis. Some real feeling for the. Actually, they say to enter the Vajrayana vehicle, you need three things. You need to have some feeling, understanding, and feeling, not just the words of renunciation, bodhicitta, and emptiness. And then obviously you have to have some connection with the Vajrayana teachings to even want to go there. But if you have some feeling for that, then you're actually ready to enter the Vajrayana vehicle. And interestingly, some friends of mine they've done several really long, the first retreat they did was like 4 years. It was a husband and wife, and they said that at the end of the 4 years of all of these, quote, esoteric practices, what they really got was a more profound understanding and feeling for the Lam Rim, for the basic teachings. So again, it's just real, as I said, it's a resultant path. So, you have to get rid of your ordinary sense of self through understanding emptiness, that we don't exist inherently, but nominally. So we have to be able to let go of our sense of self to imagine ourselves as a deity, as a perfect being. So our future enlightenment, we imagine we're bringing that into the present and imagining sort of as if I'm a Buddha now. So right now we have a lot of stuff on ourselves, right? We could write novels about all of our drama and all of the stuff but in Vajrayana, we let all of that narrative go, all of that history, everything. We start with a clean slate, and we imagine that we're this enlightened being now. Again, this involves using your imagination, your powers of visualization, all coming, as Jeffrey Hopkins has said, basically we cause our wisdom consciousness based on bodhicitta to arise as a Buddha figure, as a deity. And then we practice from that place of imagining ourselves as not being ordinary, but as being extraordinary. And we imagine doing all the things that a Buddha would do. We're practicing being a Buddha. It's like dress rehearsal. That's more the generation stage. In the completion stage, similar but much more profound and esoteric, we're using the energies, psychic energies, and I have no business. I have no. This is way beyond me, but I just know what I've heard. Using these psychic energies to purify the mind and become enlightened. So this requires understanding of. Those of you who've done yoga, maybe you hear about the central channel and the nadis and the chakras. The mind, throat, heart. There's one at the navel, one in the genital area. But this way, having the energies flow smoothly in the central channel instead of being scattered through all these millions of other channels, the energy is brought into the central channel, and then we can access the subtlest level of consciousness in the completion stage to purify our negative karma like that. Amazing, and then become enlightened. This is the claim. So it's it's a different, it looks like it has nothing to do with what we're doing here, but it has everything to do with it. Because everything we do here is preparing us, at least helping us plant the seeds that maybe not in this lifetime, but maybe in some future lifetime, we can aspire to be able to practice Vajrayana and purely. Yeah. Anything?
Yep. There are so many negative actions of mind, and they're distilled to three things. And sometimes I get confused about the difference between covetousness and ill will. Sometimes I think I've got a handle on it, and sometimes I don't. See, the other religion that I used to practice, they had a lot of things to say about negative actions of mind.
Right.
And this is, do you have anything to differentiate covetousness and ill will?
Well, tell me what you know. Tell me what your take on it is.
Oh, gosh. Covetousness, I think of the 6 perfections and how if you're practicing that, you're not coveting anything for someone else. And ill will maybe would mean anger and striking out.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got it, Susie. I think you're on the right track. There's, I mean, sometimes, well, covetousness, it's like seeing something that somebody else has and you want it, right? So it's very much tied into attachment and that clinging mind that we have. And so you can expand it to attachment, clinging, desire, afflictive desire, covetousness. And then ill will is like wishing others, I hope bad things happen to you. So it's very, it's very close to anger and hatred and stuff like that. And it's both of these states of mind interfere with us developing wisdom. You can't have, for example, this is one of the things, I mean, some people say, well, anger is a good thing. And maybe there are situations where it is. I've heard his Dalai Lama say, well, there may be rare situations where anger is a good thing, but could accomplish the same thing with compassion if we thought about it. Even when you see social injustice, you don't have to go crazy. You can say, wow, this is really bad for the people who are it's bad for the people that are the victims, you might say. I hate to use that word in this place, but anyway, you know what I mean. And the perpetrators, we have to have compassion for the perpetrators. So there's something wrong here, and I've got to interrupt it. And we can be motivated by compassion to take wrathful action. Sometimes it takes wrathful action, but wrathful action doesn't have to be motivated by ill will or hatred. And then His Holiness says, look, when we are experiencing anger, the best part of our mind, which is our wisdom, cannot function simultaneously. So if we're truly trying to solve problems, having our mind consumed by anger and ill will we're not going to come up with the most skillful answer. Usually, we might get lucky, but chances are not.
Thank you. This has to do with purification. When you're purifying and you're thinking of what you've done, perhaps sometimes I'll get there and say, covetousness and ill will. Okay. And so sometimes I think of attachment or aversion, but I understand, I think, what you're saying.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Don, we do have a question online, if you want to take this question. The student asked, Would love to hear more about the Buddhist perspective on mental health and anxiety. I think it must have to do with our karma and is comparable to all obstacles we are given in this life. That's a question. And then part 2 is, are there any specific practices, purification, and antidotes to anxiety?
Haven't heard a good answer to that, except Lam Rim. I mean, the whole path is aimed at that, isn't it? Everything that we do here is aimed at the meditations that we do, the contemplations that we do. I think in some way, the thing that comes to my mind is compassion. You know, when we're feeling anxious, like what's underneath that? What's the conversation underneath the anxiety? Anybody here anxious today? Want to say something about that?
Well, one thing I've heard and that's helped me is thinking about precious human life and doing that meditation.
Yeah, that's good. Precious human life. They said this, the most powerful antidote to delusions, anxiety is a delusion, other than emptiness. Of course, meditating on emptiness would be the ultimate antidote. Is contemplating death and impermanence. You know, that's sounds a little morbid, but it's not. You know, realizing that, hey, that we're all going to die. Must practice the Dharma. We could die any minute, any second. Would you like to say something about that, Ravi? No, I'm just kidding. And the only thing that's going to be of any benefit at the time of death is our Dharma practice. So we have to practice the Dharma now and purely. You know, just realizing how precious life is, can be an antidote to anxiety. And again, getting back to precious human rebirth, that's sometimes used as a contemplation that on precious human rebirth, which again is all part of the path, isn't it? It's only a precious human rebirth or precious human life from a Buddhist perspective if you realize what you can do with it. Like you can achieve you can achieve happiness. I remember, I guess Sopa said one time, we can have our wildest dreams of being happy and peaceful and not be stressed out, not be depressed, and, be sort of a beacon for other people. That's what the Dharma promises. So we have to, again, the practice. Meditation is a great place to start. I remember George Dreyfus, Sangye Sandeep. He's a professor at Williams. He was a monk and Geshe Larampa, and then a teacher at Williams College. And I guess he's a emeritus teacher now, but anyway, in Buddhist studies. And he came here one time and he said, contemplate, doing just single-porty concentration meditation has the potential to bring a lot of joy to the mind. When the mind's not distracted and going all over the place and can come to one-pointedness. And when you become, and then in life, you become much more skillful when your mind's not distracted. You're trying to do something and you go off on a tangent. You notice that through mindfulness and you bring your mind back to what you're doing. So a lot of that discursive conversation that feeds anxiety and depression could be healed in some sense by meditation practice. It's a big question, isn't it? The whole path is geared to that, though. Yeah. We got 2 seconds, no, 2
Andre.
minutes.
We'll take Andre's question. and
One
wrap it up.
last question.
Precious human life and that kind of stuff. In prison, I'm always encouraging guys, telling the guys that the time to prepare for when you get out is now. Waiting until you get out, it's too late, right? I feel the same thing about my spiritual practice and preparing for my next life. The time to do that is now. I can't wait until I die and say I'm going to do it then, you know. I'm going to do it now, you know. And I'm a big procrastinator, you know. And so it's like I can always think of reasons why not to do it. I'll put it off and this and that, you know. This is something you don't play around with, because, like you said, any moment, right? Any second, we could find ourselves in the bardo and what have you, you know. So it's like it's a real deal. So that made me think about that.
Yeah. It's, we don't, I mean, you know, I woke up this morning, I didn't wake up this morning. Well, actually I did. I said, this little saying that Lama Zopa said that we should say, basically I said, by the grace of 3 jewels, I didn't die last night. I'm so fortunate to be a human being again today and to practice the Dharma for now and get happiness to all sentient beings with love and compassion. I try to do that every day. So I wake up thinking about death, but I really didn't think about death. I thought about it, but the words came out of my mouth. But Lama Zopa says, don't think about that, you know, you're going to die someday. Think about today you're going to die. Wake up this morning and say, this is the last day of my life. Today I'm going to die. Let's make the best of it. Let's don't waste a second. That's a very different perspective than someday I'll die, which I'm going to assert that we don't think we're going to die. It's that sense of permanence that we have instinctively based on this ignorance. We have this false sense of self that seems permanent and real and enduring and will never die. But we, logically, of course, we know we're going to die, but that's not how we act. So it's very important to be aware of impermanence. And I'm not talking about just, I think gross impermanence is important, but also subtle impermanence. I'll say one more thing. I've gone over, oops, sorry. Well, this was very interesting to me because I met this Japanese guy in India, and then I met him. He was a Thai monk. He was Japanese, but he was a Thai monk. And then I went to this same monastery where he'd just finished a 3-year retreat, solitary retreat for 3 years while I was at the monastery, trying to learn some of the Theravada practices. Anyway, and I asked him, I said, what was the biggest thing you take away from your 3-year retreat? And he says, impermanence. Momentary impermanence, gross impermanence. The mind's always changing, change. If you're angry, and if you just watch it, it'll change, and then poof, it's gone. If you're experiencing attachment or anxiety, it's always changing, and then poof, it's gone. So he just said, being aware of impermanence, both at the subtle and gross level. But his main practice was focusing on subtle impermanence the whole time. And you get, amazing. He was very happy person. You could tell he'd done the work. I was amazed. And it's hotter than all get out in in Thailand too. So That's enough for today. All right, let's do the dedication.
So in the Gold Prayer Book, it's page 246.
May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain a notion of happiness and joy by virtue of our merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Now page 244 for the long life prayers for His Holiness. In a land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All-powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. And then at the bottom of page 245, the long life prayer for Khensa Rinpoche. The one who mastered his speech at a very young age, the one with great patience who received the name Avatari, the one with great precision who spread the teachings of Lama Tsongkhapa on bliss and void, Lama, ornament of the yellow hat tradition, please remain until samsara ends. And now inside the back cover of the Gold Prayer Book, the prayer for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of the infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and from other living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. And now inside the front cover of the Gold Prayer Book is the Long Life Prayers for Geshe Geluk and Geshe Sangpom. Supreme Guide, you lead us on the many paths of virtue. A shining sun, you give us the best of excellent explanations. Supreme virtuous friend, you are a constant Dharma companion. Lama who has renounced fame, may you ever remain. You who have steadfast imprints of virtuous qualities and keep the instructions of the glorious Guru in your heart. You who pass day and night with noble activities, great virtuous friend, may you have a very long life. And now 7 green Tara mantras for the benefit of all beings. Om Tare Tu Re So Ha. 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 Om Tare Tu Re So Ha.
Okay, I have one announcement to make. Just wanted to remind people that if it's not up already, in the next day or so, the information on our annual appeal for funds will be up on the webpage. You'll be getting emails and hard copy mails about that. People have been extremely generous over the past few years during the pandemic in supporting Kadampa Center. So we're entering the new year in really solid financial condition. And this is going to enable us to plan some exciting new programs here. So for those of you who are giving on a monthly basis, thank you. Please continue. Those who are giving annually in one lump sum, thank you, and please plan on doing that. The information on the appeal will include a copy of the budget finalized by our treasurer, David Strevel, and you can see where the money goes, but it basically goes to our resident teachers and supporting the facility. Everything else is volunteer done, but thank you for your generosity, and we look forward to an exciting year.
And I've also got a quick announcement. First of all, we have only one more Sunday morning when we're going to have teachings this year. After next Sunday, we're going to take the following 2 Sunday mornings off so that everyone can enjoy the holidays and Linda and I can breathe a little bit. And we will be here actually the Sunday night, New Year's Eve, for our annual Dorje Cadro fire purification, where we can burn up all that negative karma from 2023. Our fearless leader, Robbie, will be here to lead that practice. And then I just wanted to let you know that we do have something exciting coming up in 2024. Beginning late January, early February, we're going to have a couple of monks. I'm being directed to come over close to dawn. A couple of monks from House 26A, that is our Geshe's home at Sarah J. Monastery. Geshe Pema and Venerable Tenzin are coming. They're going to be doing a couple of sand mandalas here at Kadampa Center. We're looking to organize another one in the community. They're going to have all kinds of cool stuff to buy. We're going to have rituals and practices and all kinds of fun. So be looking for more information about that, and we will need volunteers too. So it's going to be fun times coming up next year.
All right, I think that's it, everyone. Have a great week and happy Sunday, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody online. Thanks for your participation online, especially our great questions on YouTube, as well as here in the GAMPA.